Hey guys, today we're going to talk about the law of cosines since last week you learned about the law of sines. So just as a little refresher, we use the law of sines when we were given either angle, side angle, 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 side, or side, side angle. So the leftover cases that we need to talk about are if you are given all three sides, so side, 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 or if you are given side, angle, side, meaning you're given two sides and then the angle in between them. Now, I don't want you to be intimidated. What I'm going to write next for the law of cosines, it seems kind of intense, but you're going to get used to it, I promise. So just like how we've labeled all of our triangles before, side A is opposite angle A, side B opposite angle B, and so on. So the first law of cosines, we're going to write three of them, but you're going to notice a pattern with the first one, and you'll be able to come up with the other two very easily. So the first one is side A squared equals side B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times the cosine of A. Okay, so I know it looks intense, but don't worry. A couple things that I want to point out to you. First of all, the beginning and the end always kind of use the same letter, okay? So we have right here, we have side A, and at the end, we have angle A, okay? And then anything else in the middle deals with the other letters, and it's just the sides. So an angle only shows up here once at the end where you're taking the cosine of it. Everything else is just side lengths, okay? So the next version of this equation is if instead of talking about side A and angle A, what if we had side B? So if we started with B squared, well, then the next two sides that you haven't used are A and C. So you're going to have A squared plus C squared here. Notice here the B and C are what you're multiplying by 2 over here. So this would be minus 2, and I would use A and C times the cosine of, since we started with side B, it's going to be the cosine of angle B. So that again, the B's match on the ends, and everything else deals with A and C's. So then the last version is side C squared equals, I didn't use A or B yet, so it's A squared plus B squared minus 2AB times the cosine of angle C. So that again, side C and angle C, they match. That's what's on the end. Now, where I've highlighted underneath with the orange, the item that you're looking for is going to be one of those. So for instance, if I gave you a problem and I said solve for angle B, I can see angle B shows up right here. That would tell me that I'm using this equation. If I said solve for side A, well, side A is right here, so I would be using this equation. Okay, so what you're looking for, if it's an angle, it's going to show up over here. So if you're looking for angle A, you use this equation. If you're looking for angle B, you use this one, and C, you use this one. And then depending on what side you're looking for, you use whatever shows up over here. So if you're looking for side A, you're going to use this equation. If you're looking for side B, and if you're looking for side C. And I promise you're going to get the hang of it the more that you just kind of practice with it. So we're going to do a few problems together from that worksheet. Okay, so I always think it's helpful. For me, I always draw out the triangle. I know that right now, obviously, we know we're using the law of cosines because that's the notes worksheet that you're on. Next week, if we're going to start using sines and cosines at the same time, you're going to have to determine when to use which one. So it's helpful if you can set it up and determine what you're given so that you can figure out which law to use. So side A is 11. Side C is 14, that's going to be over here. So then angle B is 34 degrees. So based on this, I can see that it's side, angle, side, right? Side, angle, side. So that's what tells me that I'm going to be using the law of cosines. So think about what is it again that we're looking for? It says that we're looking for side B. So if you remember, if I'm looking for side B, that's going to be this equation right here. So I'm going to rewrite it just so that the more often I rewrite it, I think the better it is that we remember it. So a squared plus c squared minus 2ac times the cosine of b. So b is what we're looking for, side b, and everything else we have. So a squared would be 11 squared plus c squared, well, c is 14, so 14 squared, minus 2 times 11 times 14 times the cosine of b, which is 34 degrees. And now it's all calculator work, okay? So when we plug this in, we would get b squared is 121 plus 196 minus, if I multiply 2 times 11 times 14, that's 308 times the cosine of 34. Now, I will tell you the number one mistake that I typically see is people will write b squared equals, and they'll add 121 and 196 and then subtract 308. But you have to remember order of operations, PEMDAS. Right here, the 308 is being multiplied by the cosine of 34. So this is a number in and of itself, okay? So I don't want to do 121 plus 196 minus 308 and then take that and multiply by cosine of 34. So instead, I'll add the 121 and the 196, and we get 317 minus that 308 times the cosine of 34. And honestly, I would just type that in, right? So we would do 317 minus 308 times the cosine of 34. You need to make sure, hopefully our mode, we are in degrees. So I am not yet. Before I hit enter, I'm going to change it to be in degrees. And if I hit enter, we get 61.656, blah, blah, blah. So b squared is that, 61.656, blah, blah, blah. So now we can square root both sides to get what b is. And I always wait till the very end to round, so I make sure that my calculator is going to take the square root of that entire answer, not anything that's rounded off. And we get that b is about 7.85. Let's just round that to 7.9. And there you go. So while the equation looks intimidating, hopefully the actual math behind it isn't that bad because it's mostly calculator work. Okay, so that's a side angle side situation. Example 2, again, let's kind of draw this out. We have, looks like 3 sides given to us in this case. So A, B, C, side A is 10, B is 12, and C is 16. So this is a side, 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 which is why we use the law of cosines. And I've told you that I am looking for angle A. So based on what I'm looking for angle A. So back here, if I'm looking for angle A, I'm going to be using this first equation. Okay, angle A doesn't show up in any of the other equations. That's why I have to use that one. So let's write it down and then fill in what we know. So A squared equals B squared plus C squared minus 2BC times the cosine of A. So filling in what we know, A squared, that's going to be 10 squared, equals B squared, so 12 squared plus C squared is 16 squared, minus 2 times 12 times 16 times the cosine of A. So we're going to be solving for that angle. So let's go ahead and fill in everything that we have here. So 10 squared is 100, 12 squared is 144, 16 squared, that's 256, minus 2 times 12 times 16, that's going to be minus 384 times the cosine of A. Now, I know that you guys like to just kind of watch me do this. I'm really going to encourage you to try to see if you can come up with these answers on your own because you're going to see where those common mistakes tend to happen. Again, the biggest thing is you need to remember that this is a set. You can't take the 384 and combine it over here. Okay, so really we have 100 equals, if you added the 144 and the 256, that's 400 minus 384 times the cosine of A. But I can't do 400 minus 384 because the 384 is being multiplied by the cosine of A. So if I'm going to try to solve for A, I need to get the cosine of A by itself. So the first thing I'm going to do to both sides is actually take away the 400. So we get negative 300 equals negative 384 times the cosine of A. So now to get the cosine of A by itself, we're going to divide both sides by that negative 384. So negative over negative, I know it's going to be a positive, but it is going to be a decimal. So 300 over 384, let's see what we get there, is 0.78125. So 0.78125. And I want you to think about this. We're saying that the cosine of an angle the cosine of an angle is 0.78125. So what angle is that? So what we're going to do to figure that out is we're going to take the inverse cosine of both sides to get that A by itself. So A will equal the inverse cosine of that decimal. So again, I'm just going to keep that stored. I'm going to do the inverse cosine of my previous answer, and we get 38.6, which means angle A is 38.6 degrees. Don't forget to label it with your degrees. Okay, so really we've done both types. I'm going to walk you through one more of these just because sometimes we can change. Not every triangle is going to be called triangle ABC, might be JKL or whatever it is. So I just want to show you how you can adjust your equations if you need to on example 3. And then I'll turn you loose on example 4, and hopefully you'll feel comfortable enough with all of this. So last one that I'm going to kind of walk through slowly, we have triangle EFG. So this is going to be a little bit different with how we have things labeled. So side E is 12, side F is 27, and side G is 20. So again, this is side, side, side. That's why we know we can use the law of cosines. Now, just because EFG, it's not ABC anymore, that doesn't mean that we're not going to be using basically the same format of those equations. If you want to try it on your own to set it up, that's great. Go ahead and give that a shot. But remember, I'm looking for angle E, which tells me in my equation, I'm going to end with the cosine of E, which should also tell me over here on the other side of the equal sign, I should have the side E squared. So then everything else over here is going to have to use the F and the G. So we would have F squared and G squared minus 2 times F times G times the cosine of E. Okay, so now we just fill it in. 12 squared equals 27 squared plus 20 squared minus 2 times, 27 times 20 times the cosine of E. Okay, so 12 squared, that's 144, equals 27 squared is 729, 20 squared is 400, 2 times 27 times 20 is 1080, so minus 1080 times the cosine of E. Again, remember I can combine these, but I can't combine the minus 1080. So 144 equals 729 plus 400, that's going to be 1129. My goal is to get the cosine of E isolated, so I'm going to subtract the 1129 from both sides. So 144 minus 1129, that's minus or negative 985 equals negative 1080 times the cosine of E. Dividing both sides by the negative 1080 to get the cosine of E by itself. I get a decimal. I'm going to round it here, but not in my calculator. It's about 0.912. But I'll go ahead and show you. If I'm doing 985 over 1080, 985 over 1080, and I know technically both of these are negative, but a negative over a negative is a positive. And so then this is the cosine of E. So remember, to get E by itself, I'm going to be taking the inverse cosine of that decimal. And we should get E equals, if I do the inverse cosine of that previous answer, we get 24.2 degrees. So E equals 24.2 degrees. And there you go. Okay, so I'm going to challenge you. Go ahead and try example 4 on your own. And I want you to pause it, actually try it, and then I'm about to flip it and you can see my answer as well. So example 4, it's about a tunnel being built through a mountain. You can see from how things are labeled that it's side angle side, so this is still a law of cosines. Go ahead and check out how I set it up. You're solving for side C, and I get 416.8 feet. So hopefully you're feeling okay with the law of cosines. As always, if you have questions, stop by my office hours or fill in the Google form. And I hope you guys are doing well. And just let me know if you need anything.